It's kind of been a summer of inane arguments, hasn't it? Who's allowed to be a Ghostbuster, men or women? Batman versus Superman, Team Cap versus Team Iron Man, and worst of all, fans versus critics. What's worse is if you actually pick a side in one of these arguments, people attack your very character. You don't like the Ghostbusters? You're a misogynist. You hate Batman v Superman? You're a Marvel fanboy. The point is, stop building walls. You can hate the new Ghostbusters without hating women, and you can hate DC but also want them to succeed. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go drink a Pepsi and a Coke and fall into a diabetic coma. And if Trump wins, don't wake me up, because that's another bullshit wall I don't want to have to deal with. Real students, I know that Real School may appear to be just another internet opinion on movies, filmed in a basement, delivered by a stupid Canadian accent. But I do pride myself in putting the school into Real School and being a good teacher. You'll just have to forgive the accent. I think one of the most important lessons to know for any aspiring filmmaker or screenwriter is how to choose and maintain the appropriate tone for whatever you may be working on. Most of the time, the tone of the film will actually be chosen for you because of the genre that you're creating. However, with comic book films, it's much more complicated, as not only are there subgenres within that form of literature, but you may be dealing with a rich and long history where characters evolve and change, and so does the tone. Granted, it's not an easy thing to do, so my advice is pick one and go with it. That's seemingly a big issue that DC has had with their last few films. With Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, it seemed to find its niche. It was dark, grounded, realistic, and the tone was throughout the entire trilogy. But with Zack Snyder directing, fans have either found that the films are too dark or kind of all over the place. Now you would think in a movie called Suicide Squad it would be the former, but when you're all over the place, I guess dark is thrown in there somewhere. I think Suicide Squad avoided too dark simply because of preview audiences, and who knew that angry nerds had so much influence on Hollywood? Well, DC did, because after the mixed reviews of Batman v Superman and the previews of Suicide Squad, they actually went back, rewrote the film, and added new scenes to add some levity and make the tone different. Here's the problem with that. When you have a director who's also the writer, clearly the man has a vision, so just leave it alone. Ooh, I just remembered, Zack Snyder probably scared them away from that. DC pandering to audiences is actually just a symptom of them rushing to meet and compete with that other company. Now, I will reiterate, I want both DC and Marvel to succeed. True competition makes these two companies really up their game. And who wins in that situation? The audiences, because they get the best talent, the best stories, and they put out the best movies. But if you don't think that DC is lacking vision or is all over the place, look no further than the promotional material for this film. It runs the gamut. You have tattoos, little icons for each character. They're kind of understated, but a neat little graphic design element. Next you have the Suicide Squad hero pose from a bird's eye view, a little more colorful, but reminds you of every comic book movie poster you've seen before. Next you have the skulls. They're kind of fun, they're kind of dark, they remind you of the comic book, and if that's not enough, how about character posters that look like Jackson Pollock animated an episode of Adventure Time? And if that's not enough, you've got this beauty. F***ing breakfast cereal. WT actual F does this have to do with the movie? I realize now that's how I felt watching the movie. You start off grounded and a little dark. You meet Deadshot and Harley. Okay, some twisted but real characters. Then writer-director David Ayer starts using music in really ham-fisted and silly ways. Little music video vignettes popping up and then disappearing very quickly. Well, you're starting to lose me, but you're trying to keep it light, I get it. As you get deeper into the film, you realize that the antagonist is actually a sorceress who wants to free her giant CGI monster brother and enslave humanity. Where are we going with this? My eyeballs are starting to hurt. By the time we get to the climax, that sorceress has built some doomsday lightning cloud. She has an army of nondescript tar people, and one of the characters has evolved into an Aztec demigod. How the f*** did I get here? If you are a DC fanboy, you do have to look at things with a little bit of perspective. Think about how many stories they were trying to throw at you in Batman v Superman, and that's why it was a mess. Flashpoint Paradox, The Dark Knight Returns, the death of Superman, the introduction of Wonder Woman, and the foundation of the JLA. Sorry, I ran out of breath. DC, slow it down. You're like a teenage boy who gets turned down for a kiss goodnight, so asks for sex. In Suicide Squad, it was the same thing. There were too many storylines. The introduction of a dozen new characters, the romance between Harley and the new Joker, the romance between Rick Flag and Enchantress, the backstory of El Diablo, Harley, and Deadshot, and a little more Justice League stuff. And hey, Clint Eastwood's son. That's not even the end of it. The issue of trying to cram too many things together to make something new even affected one of DC's greatest and iconic villains. This new Joker was an amalgam of old and new, and not in a good way. Much like the rest of this film, I couldn't quite put my finger on what Jared Leto's Joker was all about. If Cesar Romero was the clown, Jack Nicholson was the gangster, and Heath Ledger was the anarchist, what does that make Jared Leto? A fashionista? A pimp? An ink lover? A millennial? A creepy uncle? The fact is, he was in a no-win situation. I mean, sure, his Joker didn't work, but how do you follow Heath Ledger? I don't know the answer, but I'm pretty sure tats and a grill weren't the solution. But Joker's better half was just that. In a film that wasted the Joker and seemingly only could afford backstory for 3 characters, you got a good Deadshot, you got a good El Diablo, and luckily you got a good Harley. Honestly, she was one of the only characters to actually breathe life into her role. Being a fan favorite, I feel that the filmmakers really tried to concentrate on Harley, and I'm glad they did. Now, not everything she did was spot on. Not everything she did worked. Most notably, her scenes with the Joker. But at times, you really got true Harley, and you even got the iconic Harley. There's actually an all-too-quick flashback of she and the Joker in that iconic Alex Ross shot. Pretty awesome. As mentioned before, she was one of only 3 characters that actually had any kind of character development. We got to see Twisted, we got to see Crazy, but we also got lovesick and hurt from Margot Robbie in a very short amount of time. In a film where she could have easily been lost, in a film that couldn't really pick a tone, the tone of Harley was damn near perfect. And that makes her Suicide Squad's for the win. Then again, maybe the black and red suit would actually be more practical. I mean, Rick Flag even says, "Get what you need for a fight." And she picks this? My wife wouldn't even wear those to bed. Well, time to put this to bed, and I'm going to wrap it up in a very similar fashion to my Batman v Superman review. Like Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad was 6 movies crammed into one. Now, I'm not saying that DC is trying to be Marvel, but they are trying to catch up to Marvel and to have their level of success. The ironic thing is, they do. Suicide Squad beat out Guardians of the Galaxy for the biggest opening weekend in August. So DC, here it is. Slow down. You have the success, you have the audience. Now concentrate on giving everybody else what they want. Good story, good characters, and simple and straightforward narrative. Stop trying to rush things. Otherwise, you haven't earned the success. And if you haven't earned it, it's a burn it. Poll question, who is your favorite DC villain? As always, leave your answers in the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe to Real School, follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, what are you waiting for? Click the link, become a member of my Patreon team. You know the support is always appreciated. But until next time, school's out.